Hi everyone, Jock here from Nano Aquatics. I'm upgrading the air in my fish room. I'm switching over to a central air system. Now, most of the videos you see on YouTube of guys showing you how to install one, it's from guys in America and in Canada mostly, and they've got access to companies like Gemco and Lowe's, which can supply them with linear air piston pumps, threaded nickel plated air valves and items like that. Unfortunately, we don't have those items available to us in South Africa, so we have to innovate and improvise a little bit. So I'm going to show you my interpretation of the central air system and how I'm installing it in my fish room. Hopefully it can give you a few ideas. Maybe you can panel beat it to fit to your situation, and hopefully it can help you. All right. Okay, so yesterday I started installing the central air system in the fish room, and last night when I wanted to go over the video material to start editing, I realized I unfortunately have a corrupt SD card, so I lost all the actual footage of me installing the PVC conduit around the ceiling. Now I'll show you guys what I did and explain how I did it and why, but there's still a few things I need to do to finalize this project, and we'll record and discuss it as we go along. Now, just looking at this wall in the fish room, you'll notice there is a lot of clutter around there. This is my current air system, and those red cables there are the power cables for the LEDs. I'll tidy that up later, but that's a project for another day. Today we need to finalize the central air system. The reason for that, well, two reasons actually. The first being, you'll notice almost all my tanks are only filled halfway. It's not because I like it, it's because I've got a severe air pressure issue. Now, I like to run 2 filters in all my tanks, and to show you the problem, best will be to go to these Endler cubes. You'll notice of the 2 filters in this tank, only that one's running. Of the 2 in this tank, only that one's running. And the 2 in this tank, only that one's running. And that's basically the same for all the tanks in the fish room. Now, currently I'm running 12 of these Regent 9500s. They're nice pumps, but the diaphragms don't last. And getting replacement diaphragms for them in South Africa can be an issue. And when you do get them, they're quite expensive. So I'm switching it over and doing one of these SOBO 100B air pumps. Now, this guy does about 8,400 liters an hour, or 140 liters a minute. These guys only do about 4 or 5 liters a minute. So I'll get a lot more air out of this guy. Now, the second reason, and it actually happened last night, we've got load shedding in South Africa as we approach winter. Now, what that means is the power utilities cut our electricity for about 2 hours to help save the grid. And sometimes in that blackout, some of the citizens go around and steal the copper cables, which means our blackout can last for 3, maybe 4 days. So in a situation like that, to scramble and try and put 12 of these guys that's scattered around the fish room on a generator is a bit of a mission. It will be a lot easier just to hook up this one pump to the generator. So with that being said, let's jump into it. So there's the PVC conduit I installed in the garage or fish room yesterday. Like I said, unfortunately I can't show you, seeing as I lost all the footage, but it goes around all the way around the ceiling in a closed system, meaning the same amount of pressure is available everywhere. You just need to tap into it. Now, to tap into it, I use normal 4mm irrigation threaded taps. Some of you guys might ask, why didn't I use the one with the valves on? Simply because my ceiling is about 2.5 meters off the floor. So if I ever wanted to change the flow in a tank, I'll need to get out a step ladder just to change it. Now, to get away or to get around that, I installed these wooden blocks. You'll see there and behind me as well. Exactly how I'm going to use it, I'll show later. But to get back to the system, I fixed it to the ceiling using saddles. You'll notice there's a metal one. Well, there's another metal one behind the bucket. There you'll notice the white plastic one, plastic again, plastic and then a metal on that beam. Again, the reason why I use two different ones, wherever I can, I like to use the plastic ones. It's just aesthetically more pleasing for me. But if your house is built like mine, you'll notice that wooden beam there and that wooden beam there is built right against the wall. So you can't use plastic ones, as you can't get in behind to fix it to the wood. So for that reason I use the metal ones, simply because you can manipulate them. So this side I bend straight, this side I bend around. So this is going to go in the front side of the wood, so you can fix it to the front side. This one against the wall, doesn't really matter. This PVC system is very light, so you don't need to worry too much. This is just to secure it in place. Now, a lot of you American guys might ask, why don't I just use hangers? Those that don't know, hangers that you can get in America is basically just a plastic sleeve that goes around the PVC, which you can then directly fix to the wooden beams or the ceiling. Just simply because we don't get them in South Africa. So we are basically forced to use these saddles, or you can also use terry clips. I just like the saddles more. It's a personal preference, but you can use either. Other connectors that I use, you'll see there is a T-piece there going to the bleed valve, 90-degree bend there. There's a normal two-way connector there. Here where the pump is, well, there's another 90-degree bend, another T-bend. These normal PVC fittings or connectors that you can get, they fit snug around the PVC conduit. But remember, this is a pressurized system, so you don't want to risk it popping off in the middle of the night or day when you're at the office. So always use something like PVC weld or something, or PVC cement. This will just make it a permanent fixture, so that you don't spring an air leak and then lose flow in your tanks. As I would suggest PVC weld with the brush. It's just easier to put around the PVC and inside the connectors. Now, to show you exactly how I did, I'm going to change the angle of the camera and show you a little piece of PVC exactly how I put the threads in. Okay, to show you guys how I got my threaded holes in the PVC conduit, I'm going to use this little offcut here. Like I say, I like using the 25mm simply because it's got a rather thick wall, so there's enough space for the threaded tabs to take hold. Now, I'm a little bit OCD, so I prefer my holes or my tabs in a straight line. For the long pieces, I used Boulder's chalk, a chalk line, just to make a nice straight line, so I knew where to drill. Masking tape is this way I'm going to show you, is another way. What you do is you just stick a piece of masking tape onto the conduit. Now you'll see I didn't put this straight, just to show you regardless of how the tape is, the line will be straight. So what you do then is take a permanent marker or a pen, and because the board is level, it doesn't matter what the angle of the tape is, the line will be straight. So you'll see, even though the tape is skew, the line is straight. So what you do then is take a measuring tape. For the sake of this demonstration, just gonna make the holes about 3 centimeters apart, so it's nice and evenly spaced. Okay, like I said, I use a 4mm tap, so for your initial hole it's got to be smaller, so we'll use a 3mm drill. Then you drill your initial holes on the markings you just made. And then you can take the masking tape off, and you'll see the holes is in a straight line. Now, to put the thread in, you're going to use a threaded bit, like I say, 4mm. Take your drill. Just remember, for this you'll need a drill that can both go the normal direction as well as in reverse. Of course, you don't just want to yank out the drill bit, you need the thread to still be intact. So you fix the drill bit, and then at a 90-degree angle, or as close as possible, drill in, put it in reverse, take it out. Next one, in, and put it in reverse, and you do it with all your holes. Alright, then you take your irrigation tabs that you want to screw in. Now what I do is, some people just screw it in normally. I like to use a little bit of PVC cement. You can use the PVC one I mentioned earlier. It's just that's a bit messy, so I prefer these ones. What you're going to do is, on the normal end, you're going to put that inside your drill. Just want to make sure it's not in reverse, and then just lightly tighten it. Use a little bit of the PVC cement, put it on the threads so it makes a permanent fixture as well, and then drill it until it's nice and snug. Use the key to take the drill out again so you don't snap off the plastic. Oops, sorry about that. Next one in as well. Little bit of PVC cement. And drill it in again. Now you can just drill it or screw it in with your hands. I just found with the drill it's a lot more snug, and you can pull with all your might or bend it, it's not going to come out. So this is basically how I did it with all my PVCs. So as we're getting to the final stages of this installation, I think now would be as good a time as any to talk about the air valves and how we are implementing them or installing them. You'll see on these 3 staggered wooden blocks with the valves on, they will be later on for these 3 rows of tanks. If we move around, these 2 air lines will be for our water bins, where we dechlor and remineralize our water. This bank of tanks here will be on this first wooden block with air lines. That block there will be for a future bank that we're going to set up on this side. And if we go around to this wall, you'll see these 2 wooden blocks will be for these 2 banks of tanks. But you'll also notice that there is markings on these wooden blocks, and that is simply because we mark all our tanks. See, A1 is the top one, A2 the middle, and A3 the bottom one. See, these tanks are also numbered, and like we said in the beginning, we like using 2 sponge filters in all our tanks. That's why there's arrows on these wooden blocks. So the A1 with the arrow pointing to the left will be for the sponge filter on the further side. A1 with the arrow to the right will be for the sponge filters closest to us on that side. Then also, seeing as we're talking about valves, I want to go over the valves to get. Now, obviously the top end, many people would consider the top end will be the nickel plated valves. They're just a bit pricey, and getting bulk supply of them is a bit of an issue. So you're basically left with 2 options, unless you want to go the irrigation valve route. This green cheap plastic valve I would stay away from, if at all possible. The build quality on these ain't great, and they always seem to leak air for some reason. I think it's maybe just because it's a very hard plastic, so there's not a lot of give. I'd rather go for these black ones. The build quality is a lot better. We haven't found that these leak any air, so I would definitely go for this if you can find them. They're not too hard to come by, and they can be ordered, which is exactly what we did. See, we used quite a lot. I mean, we still have a lot left. We used a ton there, we used a lot of there, and obviously, I mean, there's quite a few in there as well. So I would just like to thank Richard and the team at Aqua Empire. They bulk ordered these for me. Also 100 meters of airline tubing, can't always get that, and that big pump they also ordered for me. I got all this in about 2 or 3 days. They personally went to go and collect it. Now, this video isn't sponsored, or this install isn't sponsored by them in any way. I'd just like to give a huge thanks and a shout out to them. So if you're ever in Gauteng, please pay them a visit. I will also leave a link to their website in the description below. And if you ever, like I said, need anything aquarium related, do pay them a visit. They specialize in aquariums. So let me finish this, and then we can see what the end result looks like. Okay, so we finished installing the central air system and hooking up all the tanks. Now immediately you'll notice the airline that was here in front, it's all gone. So it already looks a lot better. We just need to tidy up the LED power cords now. We're still busy filling our tanks, but if we go back to these inlet cubes we showed in the beginning, they're quite full now, and both sponges are running in the tanks, and they're running quite nicely. Now initially we thought for this SB100 air pump we'll only need the one bleed valve, but we had to install the second one to run with the first one that's there in the corner, and you'll notice they are both open fully. So all in all, we're quite impressed with this air pump. It's quite strong, it's running all our tanks now, and we would just again like to thank Richard and the team at Aqua Empire for helping us source this air pump at short notice, and also a special thanks to my dad who helped with the initial prep work. His help is always much appreciated. So until we speak again, stay safe and be careful out there.